I was starting from zero. I don't have a background in entrepreneurship. I've listened to your podcast a lot, and you've had some incredible entrepreneurs on here. And part of me felt a little bit like, oh man, why am I, maybe I don't belong here. But I feel like you probably have a lot of listeners who are at different stages of their journey, and I probably have something to add. It's been challenging in the business side. So like learning all the technology piece, I've had to learn how to market myself on social media. I've had to learn how to write copy. I've learned how to, do sales and all of those things. So there's that learning curve, but I also find like on a personal level, like I feel like starting a business and being an entrepreneur, like it's this whole spiritual journey, and the personal growth has been, I've never grown this much in my life.
Hello, everybody. This is the Winning in Winnipeg podcast, where I talk to top performing business owners, executives, entrepreneurs, and local Winnipeg celebrities. I get to learn who they are and how they think, and I get to hear their perspective about what's really going on in Winnipeg and in their business. Today, we have Janine LaForte, a registered dietitian and owner of Real Life Nutrition. For over 10 years plus, Janine has been managing the nutrition programming in 1,100 childcare facilities. Let me repeat that. 1,100 childcare facilities, all while raising a family. Janine has 3 kids and is sharing her knowledge and experience in feeding families and raising the aptitude of parents everywhere about how to best increase the proper nutrition and make it a way of life rather than something hard that we can never figure out. I'm sure I didn't do her justice in the intro, so let's dive in and see what we can learn. Janine, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So we finally did it. You're here.
Yes.
The first question that I'm going to ask you is probably my most controversial to date. What's your favorite restaurant in Winnipeg?
Oh boy, that's a good question. I wish I knew you were going to ask me that. To be totally honest, I am so busy, I barely ever get a chance to go out to eat.
That is an answer.
Probably the last time I went out for a really good meal, it was at Infernal Bistro.
Oh, the French.
Yeah. I love that.
Oh, it's very good there.
Yeah.
So Real Life Nutrition. How did it come about? Where did it start? And what has it evolved to?
Okay, good questions. I don't know where to start. There's a long path that kind of led me here. So
usually is, yeah.
Yeah. So I've been a dietitian for 22 plus years now, which is crazy to think. But I've had quite the journey throughout those years, and have had lots of different jobs. I've taken time off to be at home with my kids. And as you said, before this venture in my life, I was managing all of the nutrition programming for the daycares in Manitoba.
Crazy.
Yeah, it was. So in 2020, there were some restructuring things that went on, and unfortunately, I ended up getting laid off. The program is no longer running, again, unfortunately, but it was kind of the kick in the pants I needed to take this next leap in my career, in my life. Yep. Because going back to that, young person 22 years ago when I graduated university, I had always dreamed in the back of my head. I was always dreaming about starting my own business, and I had lots of different ideas and some different inspiration, and just never seemed like the right time. I wanted to get my career going, and then I had kids. I've always been sort of a go-getter, so I've done things quickly and just kept taking those next steps. And it was never the right time. But this time it was sort of, you get a little nudge. This wasn't a nudge. This was like a real kick in the ass. So So I started kind of looking into what I wanted to do and how I could use my knowledge and my experience of being a mom myself. And my friends are all in this same sort of boat as me, having kids and living these like crazy busy lives where, I don't know, there just never seems time for anything. And so it's always on the go, on the go, on the go. And you can probably relate to that yourself. And I think nutrition suffers a lot in those circumstances.
Absolutely.
And not just in the actual food we're eating, it suffers in the whole environment around how we eat too. You know, those family meals that a lot of us grew up on are, few and far between in a lot of families now, just because we're so busy. Getting kids involved and teaching them the skills that are needed to, grow up with a healthy relationship with food. Those things are, kind of fall to the wayside because we don't have time for that right now.
Yep.
So, I saw that need and I knew there was some things I could do because, I was running my household in a little bit of a different way, and just through my experience in the different jobs and roles that I've had over the years, I knew there was something that I could do and I could share my value with other busy families. So I jumped in and haven't looked back since. So it's been about 1.5 years now, and I got a long way to go. I'm sure we'll get into more of that here today. But
it's interesting how I think one of my old coaches put it is that the universe knocks at your door and keeps knocking louder and louder and louder until eventually, if it needs to break down the door, it does.
Yeah.
Right. And
I totally agree.
What happened. So, okay. So you started this. Who is your ideal client, and what is the typical journey that they would take starting out with you?
So my ideal client is busy families. So I work with families with kids of all ages. The people that come to me the most, I would say, are probably people with school-age kids.
Okay.
A lot of them are people with kids who are busy with sporting activities. So they actually have more of an investment in nutrition because they want their children to eat well so they can perform their best in whatever sport they're in.
Nice.
So yeah, I would say, just these families that are kind of on the go all the time. Most of the time it's, either single parent family, but or two parents that are working outside the home and, rushing to,
no time
to get, you probably know all about that.
Yep.
So yeah, that's my ideal client. Their journey with me, I guess, thinking about how I work with them, it's been a bit of a up and down, I would say right now. I'm still, because I'm so new, figuring out how best to serve these clients. I've started out with offering one-on-one services with families, which has gone well.
Yep.
But I'm finding that because of the material that I'm teaching and the strategies that I'm helping these families put in place, requires not just that coaching or counseling piece, it really needs an education piece and, sharing that kind of knowledge so they have that background and that foundation.
So not just what to do, but why they're doing it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I actually recently have developed a virtual program that I started selling in the fall, and I'm finding it's working beautifully. I'm So clients will go in and work through the material online, meet with me. Either I offer it as a group, and I do offer it as kind of in addition to my one-on-one services.
Fantastic.
And yeah, I think that that's working really well, and I'm going to be focusing on that. So their journey with me at this point now, as my business has evolving, is them kind of registering for this program, either as a group or with like a hybrid with working with me one-on-one.
Yeah, so you customize it.
Yeah.
For the client.
Yeah,
okay, beautiful.
Exactly. Yeah.
Very nice. I remember from early on, I've always thought of nutrition, and I don't know who told me this. They always told me, like, because I was always into sports. Always wanted to work out, be faster, jump higher, all that stuff, be better than everyone else.
Yeah.
But I forget who or when it happened, but they were saying, listen, kid, your body is 80% of what you eat and 20% of how much you work out and all this other stuff. Probably not true. However, there is a lot of information out there, right? Everything's digital. You can find pretty much anything that you want. Whether or not it's true or not is very debatable. But you can even ask an AI now on how to lose weight, how to eat healthy, how to exercise. So everything's just so widely available. What is the role of a dietitian, and how have you seen it change over the last 22 years?
Yeah, there's been a huge change in how dietitians work, for sure, since I've started. The group of dietitians that I relate to most, and of course, like in any profession, there's, you could be over here, you could be over here, because within our profession, there's different points of view as well.
Yep.
The group that I relate to most is the group that takes more of a moderation and balance sort of approach, where, all foods can fit, and it's not black and white, and that we need to, address that gray area a little bit more and listen to our bodies. And it's all about that sort of intuitive eating, maybe you've heard coming up more nowadays.
Okay. Are there some things that legitimately are black and white that are true for everyone? Like some staples that nobody really can deviate, that's true to the body?
Are you asking like particular foods or ways of eating or
anything? What things are true for everyone? Like caloric deficit versus.
I would say, yeah.
Right?
I would say what's true to everyone is that all people need a variety, well-balanced diet.
Okay.
So, all foods can fit, but, focusing, and nutrition is still, of course, important, and trying to include balanced diets, most of the time is important, and our bodies need that. So I would say what's black and white and and maybe there is some gray area within there, but is that, yeah, it's important to have that variety in your diet and some balance.
Okay. So let's say a client comes to you and they're pretty bad. Okay. They don't eat very healthy. You're not only educating them, you're creating a plan for them. Is testing or any, actual levels of nutrients and vitamins and stuff like that, do we test for them? Does supplementation play a part of this?
Yeah, that all that stuff for sure can be a big part of it. In my particular business, that's not a piece of what I do, but definitely dietitians who are working in a more clinical setting, seeing clients who are either in the hospital or released from the hospital, or who are seeing some sort of specialist for a particular, nutrition related illness.
Yeah.
they would definitely be looking at all of those things for sure.
Okay.
In my world, I'm looking at overall diet. Yeah, okay, if somebody came to me and their family's diet was, not super nutritious.
I'm sure you've seen some good ones.
Yeah, and, it's important to meet people where they're at. I'm a firm believer in keeping things simple and taking it one step at a time, because if you go in and tell them, oh, this is horrible, you have to change everything, nothing's going to happen.
Right. No.
So yeah, we just take it slow and work on things slowly and pick out, small goals that they want to start working on, and then go from there and then take the next step and the next step.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the things that I've heard was adding the good rather than taking out the bad.
Yeah.
That was a very big one. And I think that relates, or a lot of people can relate to that, as far as, maybe let's put in a little green powder or some vegetables or anything, whatever it is. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that goes really big in moving slowly.
Yeah.
Right. And creating those habits for people.
Yeah. I just did a news segment with CTV on that. And that's exactly what I shared. We were talking about New Year's resolutions, and people want to kind of dive in and change everything. And they have this black and white thinking, but it's important to add. So we talked about adding more vegetables and fruit, or learning how to cook with pulses like beans, chickpeas, lentils, those kinds of things, and adding that to your diet, or even committing to having more family meals or cooking with your kids more, those kinds of things. And like you said, adding that in rather than thinking about restricting things. That's just not sustainable.
Yeah. 2-part question. What's the hardest part about being a dietitian? And what was the hardest part about starting the business?
Okay. Hardest part about being a dietitian, I think, is when people know you're a dietitian, they want to ask you all kinds of questions, and they want to share with you what they ate. But also...
Here's a picture. Here, come take a look.
Also, they feel guilty around you. So you go out to eat, or you're at a party and they don't want you to see what they're eating.
Isn't that funny?
Meanwhile, I'm most likely eating the same thing. Yeah. So yeah, I would say that's a tricky part for sure. And sometimes I don't even tell people what I do for a living.
Okay.
In terms of starting my business, the hardest part, I was starting from zero. I don't have a background in entrepreneurship. I've listened to your podcast a lot, and you've had some incredible entrepreneurs on here. And part of me felt a little bit like, oh man, why am I, maybe I don't belong here. But I feel like you probably have a lot of listeners who are at different stages of their journey, and I probably have something to add. It's been challenging. The learning curve has been amazing, like I've never seen before. Not only in the business side, so like learning all the technology piece. I've had to learn how to market myself on social media. I've had to learn how to write copy. I've learned how to, do sales and all of those things from scratch. And I'm just like a sponge right now. So there's that learning curve, but I also find like on a personal level, like I feel like starting a business and being an entrepreneur, like it's this whole spiritual journey, and the personal growth has been, I've never grown this much in my life, in this such a short period of time. So it forces you to address some things that maybe you kind of have been avoiding for years. So yeah, it's a lot, but it's, I would never change anything. I'm happy. I love what I'm doing. And
that's fantastic. When I used to do real estate coaching, the calls that we would do with our students were 90% mindset.
Yeah.
And all of it was like, okay, well, most of it is, what fears do you have? Why aren't we doing this? Why are you procrastinating? Or or what are the things standing in the way? What do you think are the issues?
Yeah.
Like a lot of it is purely mindset.
Yeah. Oh,
So
yeah.
I completely agree with you. It forces, starting a business forces you to know no one's coming to save you.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're in charge. Whether you do it, it gets done. If you don't do it, it doesn't get done. Right? And so that's very different than working in a company, working for the government, working any sort of job.
It's mind blowing.
So where are you currently at with when you look at, say, marketing and branding? What kind of marketing and sales and stuff like that?
Since I've started, I've of course
got a great sweater.
Social media. Oh yeah, okay. There's a story behind that. I'm gonna share it with you.
Yeah.
It's new.
Looks great.
So yeah, I have Instagram and Facebook that I've been trying to be pretty consistent in posting on, and talking about personal growth. When you're putting yourself out there all the time, you have to really know yourself so you can show up in an authentic way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's even been throughout this year and a half has even been a journey for me, like even from the start till now. And I'm 100% sure that's going to continue to evolve and change.
Yeah.
I've been trying to, boost or grow my email list. So I've been working through that and being consistent with that. I got my website. So trying to do all the things, and it's just me. So, things are slower than I would like them to be. I'm not the most patient person, so
none of us are.
It's a struggle to, I have a lot of friends who remind me all the time that, you've come so far, like you're doing great, but you always want to be that step ahead. So it's, you have to sit back sometimes and look back and remember, okay, so I have done something and I am growing.
That's right. The problem with chasing the horizon is you never get to it.
Oh, I know.
Right? So it's important to pick milestones. And my wife was really good at reminding me of celebrating the small wins, which I never used to do. And I got to a point where I was almost burning out, because it wasn't a point where I wouldn't celebrate the big things, because I knew that now we had to go back to work. Yeah. And then it was just relief. It wasn't joy. Okay. Which was a real weird thing. Yeah. And so when I kind of discovered celebrating the small things, it kind of changed it a little bit, as far as just like, okay, let me look back a little bit. Where have I come? Yeah, right? I love that. For sure. You have to appreciate those things and be grateful. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what, in looking at being in Winnipeg, are you from Winnipeg? Yes. Ish? Yeah. I was born in Southern Ontario, Brantford. Okay. Yep. Home of Wayne Gretzky. Ooh. So I was born there. This is the first Wayne Gretzky shout out we've had on the show. Yes, that's awesome. So I was born there. My dad had an opportunity in Winnipeg. We didn't know a soul here. Mm-hmm. My family up and moved. I have 4 brothers. So the 7 of us hopped in our big van and off we went and started a new life. So I was 11. It was a long time ago. So Winnipeg really is my home. And I've been here since. But I too have 4 brothers. Do you really? I do. That's very cool. Yeah, it's a gong show. Yeah, it is. Still a gong show. Yeah, my parents, I think they wanted a girl, and after the 5th boy, they bought a TV and found something better to do, I guess. Yeah. Wow. So what do you think are the advantages or disadvantages of being based in Winnipeg? That's a good question. I think there's lots of opportunity here. Winnipeg just has a nice vibe. It feels like kind of small town in some ways, but you really have all the amenities and all the support.
And because of that small town feel, I find that, people are supportive, they are friendly, and I think there are a lot of opportunities because of that. I've, made a ton of different networking connections over the last year and a half, and people are just willing to chat and to share, and I love that. And I think that that's really helpful in growing a business too.
Yep.
In terms of what are the downfalls, well, we are, Manitoba, the population, of course, is not huge. So I have been trying to break into some of the other provinces just because of that. And I think that there may be more opportunity in other areas across Canada.
Yep.
But yeah, it's important to start kind of where you're at and then move from there.
Well, I think what COVID has shown us is that a lot can be digital.
Yeah.
Right. A lot can be remote. In creating a course, now you're online, you're selling, you can sell pretty much to anyone, anywhere.
Yeah.
Zoom meetings, even your one-on-ones, your one-on groups,
yeah.
The technology and software is there for you, especially in the education and the coaching realm. So I think that, you have, once your base is really established, reaching out, I don't think it's really going to matter all that much about where you're located, right, other than people, because there are people that legitimately want to meet you, right? Come to my house. Like, I want you here, right? It's kind of like the podcast. I don't want to do it over the internet.
Yeah.
I'd rather you in the studio. I'd rather talk to you directly. How do you view the role of food in our diet against sickness, against, how big of a role does that play, and disease, when we're talking about a topic that has been so big over the last 3 years?
Yeah. There's people coin the term superfoods all the time, and
it sells.
Yeah. And that's why they do it, right? There's no one food or one thing you can do that's going to prevent you from getting sick. I think, again, going back to just that balance and that moderation and overall generally a healthy diet, or, a nutritious diet where you're eating a lot of nutrient dense foods is really just the key. It's different for everyone. What your body needs is different than what my body needs. And it's important to, I mentioned the term intuitive eating, but it's important to listen to our bodies. And that's what that's all about, is listening to what your body needs, because really it does tell you if you listen.
So you kind of have to teach people how to listen.
Yeah.
And what to look for. Right. Are there some pretty blatant falsehoods that are prevalent in the general public?
Oh God, there's a gazillion of them.
Which ones stand out to you? Or that come up the most?
Well, just even restrictive dieting in general is something that bothers me a lot, because it's not sustainable.
And what's your definition of restrictive dieting?
Well, most of the current popular diets that you see out there now are restrictive, where you're omitting a whole food group, or a whole type of food.
Okay. Those
types of dieting.
Right. So not so much caloric intake, but just types of food.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that it's not something people can sustain long term. It's just not.
Yep.
And maybe you can sustain it for a longer period of time, but you're likely going to be really miserable.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Personally, that's just not worth it to me.
Yeah.
So I think it's important for people to learn how to create healthy habits that they can sustain long term. And what I teach clients is how to make things simple so that they're going to want to come back to that and do it again, and learn how to make vegetables and fruit taste good so that they're going to want to eat it with their meal.
That's right.
So that's definitely one thing. The other thing that kind of irks me a lot is just all these cleanses and out there, because our bodies were built to cleanse themselves. And that's just a whole marketing thing for these companies to take your money.
Okay. What about fasting? What's your view on fasting?
I don't think it's necessary. Okay. I feel like, naturally we all fast at nighttime. That's why it's called breakfast. Yep. I think that's enough. The problem is when you go into these fasting times, is that your body really wants to make up for that. So again, if you're listening to your body and you fasted, you're likely going to end up consuming just the same amount of calories anyway.
After the fact.
Yeah.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah.
That's, it's a completely different world when you dive into the sales and marketing of products to kind of magic pill your way to a certain result.
Yeah, that's true.
What was, so you said that you weren't entrepreneurial. Mm-hmm. What was your first job?
My first job,
I'm talking like
when I was like a teenager,
fresh out of having to pay for something.
I'm trying to remember now. That's a good. You're making me use my terrible memory.
I'm trying.
So I had some different jobs as a teenager. I actually worked at, I don't know if you're familiar with Marymount.
No.
It's a school for, girls who have come from troubled homes.
Okay.
They have a residence there. It was run by, I think it's the Grey Nuns. I grew up in a very Catholic family, and so we knew this group of nuns who came to our church all the time, and I knew they had a kitchen, and my parents knew I had this interest in cooking and nutrition, and so they got me in to helping out in the kitchen in the summer.
Interesting. So you were into it at an very early age.
Yeah.
Take me through what that looked like, what it entailed, what your role was.
Okay. So that I was involved in that program before it even was launched.
And it was with the provincial government?
Yeah, okay. It's an interesting type of I don't know what the word is. It was so basically what happened was the funding came from the provincial government.
Okay.
It flowed through the Dietitians of Canada because our provincial government didn't have any means of providing service. So it was provincially funded, but I worked for Dietitians of Canada.
Okay.
And so I was involved in kind of all the research and development and planning behind the scenes before it was launched. So, we explored different options, how we might run this type of program. We looked at what other provinces, countries were doing, and came up with something that we thought would work well in our community. Mm-hmm. And so then I was involved in the launch, and we did some sort of beta testing with a few facilities.
And these are daycares?
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so I worked with all of the licensed daycares in Manitoba, home daycares and centers.
Oh, wow. Okay.
1,100. It sounds really impressive, and it is. Mm-hmm. I was serving all of those facilities, but not all directly.
Yep.
So I was available for support if they needed it. I developed the website content, so lots of different types of blog posts and recipes and that kind of stuff.
Yep.
I ran workshops. I visited facilities in the summertime to run like this activity with the kids. So I did that, which was really fun. That's kind of all I did. I worked from home. Personally, in terms of that job, it was perfect for me because I was raising my family at the time. I worked 3 days a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday from home.
Yep.
So it was ideal. It was perfect. I was there when my kids went to school, there when they got home. I, had some flexibility in working from home. So It was great. But yeah, so I provided these services to all the facilities. Oh, and I did some menu reviews and stuff to help people develop the menus for their lunch program or snack program.
Yeah. So in raising your own kids, now teaching people about, cooking for families and kind of I'll use the word holistic, but it's not really what I mean.
Yeah.
An all-encompassing approach to it.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you wish people knew about you or dietitians or your business that they don't?
I think, people think of dietitians as someone, and I'll go back to that statement about people thinking I'm judging what they're eating.
Yep.
That's not what I do, and it's not why I'm here. I'm here to support you and to help you develop strategies to make getting food on the table for your family more simple and easy so that it can be done long term, and it's something that you can sustain and create those habits that are going to last for a lifetime.
Yep.
For my business, what do I wish they knew? I just wish they knew me and could find me, and I'm still working on growing. So, I'm trying to get my name out there and my business out there, and
yep.
So yeah, just wish that people would know how to find me.
Beautiful. So we touched a little bit. So it kind of rung a bell when I use the word holistic, but personal development. Okay. I find that there's a lot of people in the personal health realm, not so much like healthcare, doctors and hospitals and stuff like that, but professionals, kind of like in the alternative, like chiropractors and, physiotherapists, athletic therapists. Okay, yeah. I'll throw dietitians in there as well. They tend to focus on personal development and the mind as well. And you mentioned a little bit about kind of eating together. You mentioned about in starting the business, how much development you've had to do. But how much does that play into it? So when you're meeting with a client and there's clearly some issues going on, how much is just straight up, here's the foods that we eat, versus you mentioned the why of what we eat, or even the why of not why we eat, but why we should be doing this in the first place.
I love that you asked that, because I've developed this like kind of signature framework, I guess you could call it, that is kind of the foundation, the basis of the program that I run. So I call it the 3 pillars to success with feeding your family. Okay. So we're looking at these 3 pillars. Number 1 being how. Okay. So that is all that foundation stuff like you talked about, like the how you feed your family. We're talking about looking at diet culture and how that's kind of affects the foods that you choose to purchase and cook for your family. Learning more about moderation and balance and how that can really support you in developing lifelong habits. In that how piece, we go back to the family meals. Why is that important? And how can you incorporate more family meals? What are the benefits that has for your kids and your family in general?
Right.
And, getting kids in the kitchen, and how can that help to set them up for success later in life? So we look at that foundation piece, and sometimes going in, I find clients are like, oh, why do we have to talk about this? Like, how does this really come into play? We want to know what to feed our kids. And but then after they've been through it, they're like, wow, that was like really transformational. Like, I needed that to kind of set the stage for the next pillar, which is that what piece. So we go into all of those things about, okay, what should we eat? What is a balanced plate, and how might that look in your home? We'll talk about how to incorporate more vegetables and fruits into your diet. What are pulses, and how can that benefit your family, and how can you eat more of those and make them taste good? What else? Oh, I talk a lot about how to boost nutrition in the meals you're already making. So for instance, maybe all you have time for today is a frozen pizza. So how do you make that meal maybe a little bit more nutritious? So maybe you're looking at adding some vegetables on top of it. Maybe you're adding a salad or some just chopped up veggies on the side, or maybe you're having a glass of milk with it for dinner. So we talk about how to boost nutrition in some of these meals that maybe aren't super nutrient dense.
Right.
So there's that what piece. So a lot of people come in with those questions like, well, okay, what do I need to feed my family? So we deal with that. And then the last pillar is just putting it all together. So that's basically creating the plan. So we're looking at all of the things that come into creating that plan. For instance, just addressing your schedule, and how are you going to find the time to plan and prepare your meals, and how to save time when you just don't really have hardly any time. So how do you save time in prepping your meals? How to save money. Yep. So we kind of talk about a lot of things, in regards to that, especially right now with food prices the way they are. And then just putting it all together, and I help them come up with a plan that's going to work really well for their particular family's needs. So, again, when we're looking at that plan, we're also looking at likes and dislikes and all of those things that affect what you can and can't feed your family. So there's, of course, there could be allergies or other needs as well. Mm-hmm. So we deal with a lot of that stuff in that first pillar, in that right. How, and addressing that for sure. We talk about a lot of those things.
I can imagine that's a huge roadblock for some people if they've never considered it or done any of it or anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have a daily routine, or is there certain things that you have to do every day? Are you a routine person? Or are you not a routine person? Are there certain things that nutrition wise that you're doing every day for not only yourself, but also your family?
So absolutely. I'm pretty routine. I would probably call myself a type A person who likes things in order. And I would say probably 90% of the time going into a week, I have my meals planned. So
okay. That's on the weekend?
No, ideally for me, what works in my family is I like everyone, and I teach this in my program, I like everyone to get involved in it. Okay. So generally what works best is maybe like a Thursday while we're sitting down for dinner, or if there's a time when we're home, we'll kind of talk about, okay, what do we want to eat next week? And if possible, get everyone to contribute an idea.
Okay.
Come up with a plan. And of course, we're looking at our schedule at that point, who's going to be home, who's going to be around to help prepare the meals. So that Fridays in general, or Saturdays, lately more Saturdays because I've been too busy Fridays. we'll go do our grocery shopping and make sure we have everything that we need for the coming week. So when I'm looking at creating those meals, I'm always looking at, what's making sure that there's some balance. So making sure there's vegetable or fruit, or usually 2 or 3 at every meal, some protein, some grains, and, something that everyone's going to be able to eat and fill up on.
Right. Yeah. Starting your own business, super tough. And just, the big transitions in life. Do you have who and what are the biggest kind of influences in your life? Could be mentors, could be a book, could be, people, places, things, anything that's been a big influence in your life?
Probably the biggest influence in my life was my mom. She, with a family of 7, was very resourceful. We didn't have a ton of money growing up, so she always knew how to get a good meal on the table. Mm-hmm. And I think, at the time I didn't recognize that, but looking back and as I got older, I really appreciated that. She was very realistic and resourceful.
She made you 4 brothers. You must have been battling to get some food in there.
When we were teenagers, it was, like you said, is a gong show. Yeah. So I would say my mom was my biggest influence. She's no longer around, but I still think about that all the time.
Yeah, I imagine she set quite the foundation for you. How do people find you?
They can find me at reallifenutrition.rd. So I'm on Instagram and Facebook.
Okay.
I also have a website, reallifenutrition.ca.
Okay.
I have some exciting things coming up in the next little while, and I'm looking to continue growing. So I'm considering maybe podcasting later on this year, so I might have to ask you for some tips.
I'm always here.
Just find me. I'm here to help. I want to support people. I see the need. I've been there and done that with my own family. Mm-hmm. And, I want to help. And that's why I started this business from the beginning. I wanted to empower, I want to say women, because often it's women who are, taking the lead on meals in the home, and give them, everything they need to get it done, and in a simple way, without the stress and without spending like 1,000,000 hours in the kitchen preparing meals, because there's lots of things you can do. And I want to share that with everyone.
Yeah, I think it's super important. Like there's not many things that stress me out in life.
Yeah.
Thinking about what to make for supper, one of those things.
Yeah, it is.
I love
it's
cooking.
Stressful.
I was on the fire department for 11 years.
Okay.
We cooked all the time.
Yeah.
But coming up with what to cook was the hardest part.
Yeah.
It wasn't the actual cooking itself.
It is. And that's why, including other people in your home is important. Even if they're little kids, like, mm-hmm. What do you want to eat? Maybe they say mac and cheese. So that's fine. You go find a mac and cheese recipe, or mm-hmm. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's important to include them too. And it is stressful. It doesn't need to be as stressful as it is.
Yeah.
It can become just kind of a regular routine and a habit that you just naturally do.
Yeah. And so for somebody, so they come and find you, they reach out to you, or they find your course. Is that kind of the first step into it? Or maybe sign up for your email? What's the preferred way to kind of get them into the zone and get them thinking the way that you need them to? Yeah,
I would, just find me on social media. I'm pretty active there. Okay. So you'll get lots of good kind of free tips there. I do also have lots of freebies on my website. So again, another way to get some kind of, just get an idea of kind of the messaging that I like to share with clients and my audience.
Yeah.
So I would say that would be a good way to start. You can by downloading those freebies, you'll automatically be put on my email list, which of course you can unsubscribe anytime, but I do send out an email once a week and give more free advice.
Yeah.
I also offer a free consultation. So if someone is thinking about, wanting to possibly work with me, they can set that up and we can have a chat over the phone or over Zoom and see if it's a good fit.
Beautiful.
I do have one thing I wanted to come back to that we forgot is my shirt.
That's right. Your merch.
My merch. Oh, I was so happy. So Friday, shout out to my daughter.
Okay.
Who's 14.
How are the rest of your kids? You got 3 kids?
Yeah. My oldest is 17. My middle guy is 15 and my daughter's 14.
It's a fun house right now.
Oh, it is. Actually, my oldest just got accepted to university in Ontario. So he's going to be moving next year.
It's exciting.
Exciting and scary.
Yep.
But it's good. It's all good. Anyway, back to my shirt. So I've been wanting merch for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a whole other probably rabbit hole we could go down to. But the money's just not there to be buying merch and just didn't feel like a good use of the money I am making.
Yep.
So I asked my daughter, who was in graphics class, if she could make me a shirt. And she came home on Friday with my new merch.
She did it.
I was so happy.
That's fantastic.
So yeah, I have a shirt now and
love it.
I'm going to see if she'll make me a couple more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know how much benefit that's going to give me, but I was pretty happy to wear it.
Yeah. Well, no one's going to sell your business like you do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's one way that we promote it. So
yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here. If there is, we'll put a link to all your stuff on the website.
That'd be great.
And on the podcast. Thanks for taking the time. And you were the first dietitian we've had on. So you will always have that feather in your cap.
Yay.
Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It was great.